Look inside your toilet bowl right now. There is always water sitting at the bottom, even when nobody has used it in hours. You have never once asked why. It is just there, like the sky is blue, a detail so familiar it has become invisible. But that small, boring puddle took humanity thousands of years to get right. Several false starts, one mocked doctor, one deadly London summer. Without it, your home would smell like the sewer running beneath it, all day, every day. No way to escape it. The story of how we sealed that smell away with nothing but a bend in a pipe will change how you look at the most overlooked room in your house. Start with what a toilet actually connects to: a sewer, a pipe carrying waste and gas away from thousands of homes at once. Sewer gas is methane, hydrogen sulfide, ammonia, not just unpleasant, flammable in the right concentration. In an enclosed space, dangerous just to breathe. Every toilet, sink and drain in your building is a straight, open pipe into that system. Without something blocking the way, that gas rises straight up into your bathroom every single day. The little pool of water in your bowl is that block. It is called a trap, one of the most underrated inventions in the history of plumbing. Moving waste away from people is a very old idea. Around 2500 BC, the Indus Valley civilization built some of the earliest known drainage systems. Cities like Mohenjo-Daro, in what is now Pakistan. Private household latrines connected to covered brick drains running beneath the streets. One of the oldest known examples of engineered sanitation anywhere on Earth. Thousands of years before Rome existed. But the idea did not spread evenly. Most ancient cities managed waste with far less sophistication. Useful knowledge like this was easily lost when a civilization declined. Rome came closest to solving it at scale. Beneath the city ran the Cloaca Maxima, the Great Drain, first built around the 6th century BC as an open channel to drain marshland, later covered and expanded. Roman public latrines were communal, long stone benches, rows of keyhole-shaped holes, no partitions. Dozens of people sitting side by side, flowing water carrying the waste toward the Tiber below them. A remarkable public work, fed by the same aqueducts that supplied the city's bathhouses, but mostly a Roman luxury, dependent on taxes, slave labor, and a functioning empire. When that empire collapsed in the West, so did the maintenance, the knowledge, the will to pay for any of it. For over 1,000 years afterward, most of Europe went backward. Chamber pots, cesspits dug beneath houses, and a forgotten profession, the Gong farmer. Gong farmers worked at night, by law in many towns, emptying cesspits by hand, hauling the waste out beyond the city walls in carts. Dangerous, foul-smelling work. It paid well precisely because almost nobody else would do it. Some Gong farmers reportedly died from the fumes in poorly ventilated pits, suffocated by the job that fed their families. Streets had open gutters running down the middle, chamber pots emptied straight out of upper windows. A shouted warning if you were lucky enough to hear it coming. Cities smelled exactly the way you'd expect, essentially all the time, and everyone just lived with it. The actual fix arrived quietly in 1775. A Scottish watchmaker named Alexander Cumming. Cumming patented a flush toilet with a curved pipe beneath the bowl, shaped so a pool of water always sat trapped inside the bend, sealing off the smell rising from the sewer below, the S-trap. And the principle was almost embarrassingly simple. Water is heavier than gas. Gas cannot push through a standing pool of liquid. So as long as the bend stays filled after every flush, nothing below it can escape upward. Cumming's design was refined a few years later by Joseph Bramah, who fixed the flush valve so it wouldn't jam. His company sold thousands of units across Britain. Here's the part almost everyone gets wrong. Ask who invented the flush toilet, and most people say Thomas Crapper. Crapper did not invent it. He was a real Victorian plumber, born decades after Cumming's patent, who ran a successful sanitary equipment company in London. What he actually did was refine and popularize existing designs. A genuine, better U-bend, patented in 1880. High-quality fittings, stamped prominently with his own name. The myth took hold because American soldiers stationed in Britain during the First World War kept seeing Crapper embossed on cisterns everywhere. They carried the name home as slang for the whole invention. A skilled businessman credited for someone else's breakthrough purely because his was the name stamped on the hardware people actually saw. With the trap solved, the next crisis was everything downstream of it. Nowhere felt this harder than London. By the 1850, hundreds of thousands of new flush toilets were emptying into a sewage system built centuries earlier for rainwater alone. That system drained straight into the River Thames, the same river the city drew much of its drinking water from. In the summer of 1858, an intense heatwave baked the exposed sewage along the riverbanks. London's Parliament, sitting right beside the river, was overwhelmed. A smell so severe the newspapers named it the Great Stink. Members reportedly soaked curtains in chloride of lime just to keep working. For once, the discomfort of powerful people forced fast, decisive action. Parliament funded a civil engineer named Joseph Bazalgette to build a completely new sewer network, over 1,000 miles of it, carrying waste east, away from the city, releasing it downstream of the population. Bazalgette famously doubled the pipe diameter he calculated was strictly necessary. He would rather overbuild once than dig up London's streets again in 50 years. He was right. Large parts of his system, sized for a Victorian city, are still quietly carrying waste beneath London today. But the Great Stink was never really about smell alone. It was about disease, and the man who had already proved the connection had died before construction even began. A physician named John Snow had spent years arguing that cholera spread through contaminated water, not foul air. The accepted medical theory of the time said otherwise. In 1854, during an outbreak in Soho, Snow mapped every death by hand, found them clustering tightly around a single water pump on Broad Street. He convinced local officials to remove the pump handle. Cases in the area fell sharply afterward. It remains one of the founding moments of modern epidemiology, tracing a disease back to its exact source, using nothing but a map, door-to-door records, and a refusal to accept the official explanation. Snow died in June 1858, the very same summer as the Great Stink. He never lived to see Bazalgette's sewers built, the system that would finally prove his theory right for good. None of this worked as one single invention. It worked as a chain. Every link had to hold for the whole thing to function. The S-strap sealed each individual home. The sewer network moved waste away from thousands of homes at once. Later treatment and filtration kept that waste from poisoning the water supply further downstream. Remove any one link, and the smell, or worse, the disease, comes straight back. A perfect trap connected to no sewer just floods your street instead of your bathroom. A Scottish watchmaker. A mocked physician nobody believed until after his death. An over-engineering civil servant. Roughly a century of repeated outbreaks. That is what it took to build a system most of us now never think about at all. What gets lost in the flush-and-forget version of this story is how recent and how genuinely hard-won all of it actually is. Even today, the United Nations estimates that well over 2 billion people worldwide still lack access to a safely managed toilet, fact that sits strangely alongside how automatic the whole system feels for everyone else. Diseases linked to unsafe sanitation remain a leading cause of death for young children globally. Right now, not in some distant century we like to imagine is safely behind us. The pool of water sitting in your bowl is not a given anywhere on Earth. In huge parts of the world, sanitation is still the unsolved problem it was in Rome, in Georgian London, in cholera-era Soho, waiting for its own Bazalgette. So the next time you glance down and see that small, still pool of water, look again. It is not decoration, not an accident of plumbing. It is a Scottish watchmaker's simple bend, holding back a sewer's worth of gas with nothing but the weight of standing water. It is Bazalgette's oversized pipes, running beneath your street right now, still doing the job he sized for a city he could only guess the future growth of. It is John Snow's stubborn insistence that filthy water, not bad air, was the real killer, vindicated only after his own death. It is thousands of unnamed Gong farmers working through the night so medieval cities could function at all. It is a great stink, so unbearable it forced a government to finally act, after decades of doing nothing. And it is a persistent, comfortable myth about a plumber named Crapper, who mostly just put his own name on somebody else's box. Every single flush is quietly standing on all of that history at once, whether you ever think about it or not. The next time that small, ordinary pool of water sits there, undisturbed, doing its quiet job, you will finally see it for what it really is. An ending, not an accident.
Ah, I understand. Follow, and see you next time. For another thing, you'll never look at the same way again.